Sarah from Midnight Butterfly Designs, and today I'll be teaching you how to make the Monarch cane. Here is one that I made earlier, a slightly different cane variation as the orange texture is made from layered orange colours. You can't really see it in this close-up, but certainly on the butterfly in real life you can see some. However, in this one we're going to be making a gradient from a yellow colour to an orange to a slightly darker orange light brown colour. We're also going to be using black and white. All the clays that I use in all my videos are premo sculpey. I just find it's a nicer clay to work with. You will need to have pre-conditioned your clay so that it is squidgy and ready to use. You will also need some tools for this project, including an X-Acto knife and a tissue blade. You'll also need an acrylic roller or a pasta machine. I'll be using a pasta machine. Just a note, to precondition your clay, just grab it between your hands, warm it, smoosh it a bit, make sure it's glossy and relatively flexible to use. The colours that we're using here are not specific premo colours. The yellow is a mixture of yellows with a hint of orange, the orange is a mixture of several different oranges and a bit of brown, and the brown is oranges, a little bit of red and even a little bit of green. You can of course have your butterfly any colour that you would like. I have gone for a more natural look, that's why the tones are ever so slightly muted. Once the colours have been reduced, they will pop from the black and the white, so I've made sure that my colours aren't too bright. You want a bigger ball of orange because the majority of the wing is going to be orange. The yellow and the brown tones are just going to make the orange zing on the wing. So once all your colours are conditioned, you can start the tutorial. To start with, we're going to make a skinner blend. I won't be showing all of this on film. If you need to look up how to do a skinner blend, then please do look on YouTube. This is the 3-way skinner blend. I roll out all the clays on the largest pasta machine setting, which for me is 1, that might be the opposite for you. And I start cutting the orange into a big square. You want the orange to be bigger than the other colours because obviously you want the wing to be mostly orange. I start cutting the angles where I'm going to join the other colours of clay. On the left hand side you've got a smaller angle, that is where the brown will mix with the orange, and on the right hand side you've got a bigger angle which will be for the yellow clay. The yellow clay will give a bigger gradient and the brown clay you'll just get a hint of it on the end of the cane, which is what I want. I'm doubling up the orange, and I will do this for the brown and the yellow also. This is just because you get a larger amount of clay within the cane and it's going to be easier to use once you've got a larger gradient going. So I'm just cutting up the yellow here. I'm leaving a gap for some of the brown, you can see it at the top there on the right, and obviously there's a large section of yellow. When you fold the yellow and the brown with the orange, they will mix, but the yellow will have some yellow left at the end of the cane. The brown will not, but will have a nice gradient going to that dark colour. So once you've got all your colours together, you want to squish them so that they're not going to come apart when you put them through the pasta machine or when you roll them. So really take some time to mush them together. When putting it through the pasta machine or using an acrylic roller, remember to fold it from top to bottom. If you fold it sideways, you will lose all the colour gradient and you'll just get a mix of colours. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this through the pasta machine on the thicker setting and I will show you the result. So this is the result of a first go through the pasta machine. I'm just going to fold it and pop it through a bunch more times and I'll show you the effect. A little tip when using pasta machines: if you put the fold in first through the pasta machine, you are less likely to get air bubbles as they can escape through the bit that is flappy. So sometimes I fold it in 3, that's when the end of the gradient gets a bit messy, just to make sure that it stays quite neat. You can see here the brown blend is starting to come through, but the yellow one hasn't just yet. It's a lighter colour, so lighter colours tend to blend last. I've skipped to the end here so you can see that we've got a lovely gradient. I'm going to fold it in half because what we want is like a long lovely tape, so that we can cut it up and make it into a gradient block. So I folded it in half and we've got a nice lovely long rectangle then, and I will pop it through the pasta machine on the thicker setting to start with and then move to thinner settings I find that sometimes this gets too long or unruly, so I will cut it. You can also cut it in half if it gets too long and you just want to go down to a very thin setting. Here I may have made the bottom one a little bit too thin, but the gradient will come out really nice. I've decided to cut at 3cm intervals, and then I'll stack the cane this way. You can also do it in a concertina effect where you sort of zigzag the cane into a square, but I prefer stacking. It's a bit more precise for me. So I'm just using the tissue blade there to lift the colours off the glass mat so that I'm not losing too much of the clay. It can be a bit temperamental when it's that thin. Remember when stacking that you want to go from either the darkest colours to the lightest or the lightest colours to the darkest. If you mix up the gradient, then you've undone all your hard work when you're doing the skinner blend. But it can be quite interesting if you're making something like a kaleidoscope cane. It's just not useful for this butterfly cane. I hope here you can see we've got a lovely gradient from yellow to brown. We're going to cut this stack in half. Obviously we're going to use it for 2 wings, so we need half of it for the top wing and half of it for the bottom wing. So once this is cut in half, we're going to start working on the top wing. We need to shape it with the gradient going the right way into the wing. I would have the lighter colour on the inner wing and the darker colour on the outer wing. We also have to consider some orange flecks that are just behind the white flecks at the top of the wing, so ideally we want to cut off a little bit of cane to make a jelly roll for those little flecks. We're going to make the cane into a sort of rectangular shape after that. So here is the shaped part of the main wing. Try and make sure that you sort of pinch the inner wing as it does come to a point and square off the back of the wing. Try not to use too many straight lines in a butterfly. They tend to be quite wiggly, relatively organic. So before we start cutting into the big wing, I want to make the jelly rolls that are going to be the detail of the wing. Start by rolling out your black. I use the second thickest setting for mine. I've just rolled it through a couple of times. To make a jelly roll, it's a very simple cane. You make a roll of whatever colour you want in the middle, sit it on whatever colour you want on the outside, cut around the middle colour, and then roll the middle colour in the outer colour. If you cut the clay at an angle where the clay will join, you'll get a much nicer join on the jelly roll. You'll notice that this jelly roll for the orange is quite small. That's because we're only going to be using 3 pieces of it and only on the top wing. You'll need to make quite a fat white jelly roll because we'll be using that on both the top wing and the bottom wing in various sizes. So now we're going to work on the main wing. You'll want to roll out your black into a relatively thin thickness. I use 3 on my pasta machine. You'll also want a picture of a monarch or something to refer to draw the veins on. I will use a ball tool. Really take some time to draw these on correctly. Make sure that you don't have too many straight lines. It is hard to cut curved lines into something like this, but using a tissue blade will help you. I always try and keep the pieces of the butterfly that I've cut in the places where they would probably be. Just helps me visualize the wing, and then you can sort of look at your butterfly and find out where you're going to put the black. So here the veins are sort of in the middle. I probably won't put any black at the bottom of the cane for the time being, because I want that to be quite a thin layer when the cane is done. Obviously if you double up the black, then the cane is going to have thicker areas of black, so make sure it's thin where you want it and thick where you want it, and you will be fine. Just to prove this here, I'm going to cut off the excess of the clay around the edge, but also at the front where it doubles with the rest of the black. I don't want it too thick at the front there. It's going to be a bit thicker in the end anyway because of all the black layers that we're going to put on, but if I can keep it thin at this stage, it will just help with a realistic look later. So that's the orange part of the upper wing completed, and now we're going to work on the rest of the wing. We're going to sort out the jelly roll first. So I'm going to cut it into two because I want half of the bottom wing and half of the top wing. The best way to reduce a jelly roll cane is by pushing it, but for speed purposes I was rolling it. You do get more wastage this way though, so it's not the best technique. I cut it in half again because as you're rolling it, you're making it smaller, and I wanted some slightly bigger sections within the cane for the variation within the wing, so I kept one half that was slightly bigger. Once I was happy with the size for the speckles, I cut the cane at 2 and a bit centimeters length, which is basically the width of the cane currently. If you notice on a monarch butterfly, the speckles do seem to be paired, so I did try to take that into account when placing them around the wing. I wanted to add a bit of black to the top of the cane so that there is a slight difference between the orange and the black and white speckles, and a slight thickness that defines them from the main wing. Then I added the speckles. I'm adding a little bit of black on the front of the cane. This is just to help the transition between the wing shape and the speckles. If you notice on a monarch butterfly, they do have quite a lot of black, so you will need quite a lot of black for this project. The speckles at the top of the wing are a lot fatter, and also they don't have to be a cylindrical shape, so I do try and make them something else, whether that's slightly triangular or flatter. You also want to stack the shapes on top of one another. This is how they are on the butterfly, and you can sort of squish them, which will also alter the shape. Next you want to add some black in between the speckles and the next layer of speckles, just to give them some definition, and again keep referring to your monarch picture. This will really help you and guide you. Then add some more bigger speckles at the back. See how I am really trying to change the shape of those from a cylinder and really pushing them together to close all the gaps. So now we're going to be working on the jelly roll that we made earlier with the orange centre. We're going to roll it out so that it is roughly 3 times the length of your cane, and we're going to cut it into 3. We're then going to stack the jelly roll on the back of the last speckled layer that you put, making sure that the biggest jelly roll piece is on the bottom and the smaller ones are on the top. If they're all the same size, it doesn't really matter, it's up to you how you cut them. So we're now going to deal with all the really cute speckles down the edge of the cane. At the top I cluster 3 of the speckles to make a nice tip to the cane, and then the rest of the speckles tend to be in pairs, so I make some very small speckles that are just about the length of the cane and line them up down the side of the wing. So now we have all the speckles on the outside of the wing, it's time to pack the clay with the black. This is to obviously fill out the cane. Have a look at a Monarch picture whilst you're doing this to make sure that the speckles are where you want them to be. Obviously if you're making a fantasy butterfly that doesn't really apply and you can just follow my method. You can pack the cane in two ways. You can either use lumps of black clay as I am here and just shape them into the rough shape of the gap that you're trying to fill, or you can roll the black into a long sausage and sort of use little bits of the sausage to fill the gaps. Next I'm going to use some black clay to do the edges of the cane all the way around, so I'm going to roll out a piece of clay so that it's long. On a relatively thin setting I used 3 and then I'm going to go all the way around the cane. You'll see that I missed the bit at the front, and that's because there's already quite a big thick bit of black clay there already, so I didn't feel the need to add any more thickness to that. Once you've added the black to the cane, it's time to shape it a little bit. You want to let this cane rest for a little while because it is quite complex, but as you can see the gradient looks really good in the top wing, and the speckles look really good. They really zing. So now take the second block of gradient that we made what seems like ages ago, and you want again to shape it into the wing shape. We're going to use all of this particular block in the bottom wing in one shape. I'm using the mat to get quite a nice curve on the bottom of the cane and just make it into a sort of teardrop shape, with the lighter colour being near the tip of the teardrop and the browner colour being toward the bottom. Again, you'll want to reference a butterfly picture or item and draw on the shape of the bottom wing using a ball tool. You want to really take your time with this, as the Monarch cane is quite distinctive in the way that it looks, especially on the bottom. Then using an X-Acto knife, just gently cut round. This one is more complex, so I don't tend to use the tissue blade for this one, but again lay out the cane as you've cut it off, and that way you won't get mixed up when you come to put the cane back together. At this point, I'm also going to just gently taper the edges. They're a bit sharp at this point because obviously you've cut them with a straight knife, so you want to curve them because the curves are what appear in nature, and they look much better. So I'm just going to take time just to do that to every single piece before we put the veins in. Once we've done that, we can start putting the veins in. I would start with the middle piece and wrap that all the way along, so I would double that up. Make sure the black really sticks to the clay, and again be mindful of where the thickness of the black clay is going to go. So as you add the pieces, don't add extra black clay where there is none needed for that particular vein. So once all the black is in place and all the pieces are together, you want to put black all the way around the edge. So again, I'm going to run a piece of black through the pasta machine on a 3 setting and wrap around the entirety of the bottom cane. So now it's time to add some more pretty speckles all the way around the edge of the lower cane. Again, we're going to be working in pairs, so we're going to make sure that we have pairs of this particular jelly roll log. Be careful when you're rolling it out. As you can see there, I've got a little bit of useless cane because I got a little bit too enthusiastic when I was rolling, so I've had to discard that. So mine will have a few less speckles than I originally intended. I cut them out so that they're the length of the cane. It just makes it easier just to add them onto the edge of the cane. And I will just position them where I'm happy with them. You can use the reference of a Monarch butterfly picture if you wish, or you can just pop them where you want to, depending on whether you want a more fantastical butterfly or a realistic one. Once I'm happy with the placement of the speckles, I'm going to start to pack the space in between the speckles again. I'll be using a mixture of techniques, one from the top wing where I just got bits of clay and stuffed it in between the speckles, and then the second, which is where you roll a sausage and then you use the sausage to fill the gaps. It really is up to you which technique you use. Sometimes I find one faster than the other, but I do find that the sausage technique tends to pack the cane a bit tighter so that when it comes to reducing it, you have less distortion, especially with some of the details. Once you've packed the cane as best you can, roll out a piece of thin black again, and you're just going to wrap the entire cane in it. This time the whole cane from all the way around the edge, from the inner wing right round back to the inner wing. Press it down so that everything has a nice edge, and that is your wing done. Now both canes are done, I would rest them for at least half an hour either in the fridge or in a cool place before I would reduce them to the size that I want. If you don't know how to reduce a cane, there are plenty of YouTube videos you could use. I don't have one at the moment. I would love to see what you guys make from this tutorial, so please either private message me or find me on Facebook at Midnight Butterfly Designs. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Happy claying!